Britain keeps producing prehistoric discoveries that do not fit the simple Stonehenge story most people were taught. A monument built and rebuilt across more than 1,000 years. Stones dragged from mountains nearly 200 miles away. A buried landscape of timber, earth, and bone surrounding the famous stones on every side. And, more recently, a ring of vast pits that no one expected to find at all. The pattern is the same every time. Researchers arrive expecting one thing. The landscape shows them something else. Most people picture Stonehenge as a single structure standing alone on an open plain. The truth is stranger. The stones are only the most visible fragment of something much larger. A sacred geography that stretched for miles, used and altered for thousands of years before written history began. What is established is this: Stonehenge was never finished in one act. What remains uncertain is why people returned to this exact place generation after generation, to build something they could have built anywhere. The question is still open. Begin with the place itself. Stonehenge stands on Salisbury Plain in the county of Wiltshire, in the south of England, a wide chalk upland that rolls toward the horizon with little to interrupt it. The monument sits not on the highest ground, but slightly below it, within a shallow bowl in the landscape. From a distance, it looks small against the sky. Up close, the scale changes completely. The largest stones, the sarsens, stand more than 4 meters tall above ground and weigh around 25 tons each. They were shaped, lifted, and locked together with carpentry joints carved in stone. Mortise and tenon, tongue and groove, techniques borrowed from working in wood and applied to rock that would not move again for 4,000 years. This is not a rough circle of boulders. It is engineering. Excavations and surveys across the 20th and 21st centuries by archaeologists working with English heritage, with universities, and with the long-running Stonehenge Riverside Project have slowly pulled apart the monument's history. And what they found was not one Stonehenge. It was several, layered on top of each other. The first monument here was not stone at all. Around 3000 BCE, people dug a great circular ditch and bank, a henge, and inside its edge, they dug a ring of pits. These are known as the Aubrey Holes, named after the antiquarian John Aubrey, who noted depressions here in the 17th century. For a long time, their purpose was debated. Then excavation revealed something unsettling. Many of them held cremated human remains. Stonehenge, in its earliest form, was a cemetery, one of the largest known late Neolithic burial sites in Britain. The dead were placed here for centuries before the great stones ever arrived. Researchers arrived expecting a temple. The landscape showed them a place for the dead. Then came the stones. And this is where the accepted version becomes harder to maintain. The smaller stones at Stonehenge are called bluestones, a name for several types of rock that share a bluish tint when wet or freshly broken. They are not local. They do not belong to Salisbury Plain. Geological work, refined over decades and sharpened by researchers including Richard Bevans and Rob Ixer, traced these stones to the Preseli Hills in Pembrokeshire, in West Wales. That is a distance of roughly 150 miles, or around 240 kilometers. Some of these stones weigh 2 to 4 tons. They were moved somehow across that entire distance, over land or water or both, by people without the wheel in regular use, without draft animals proven for the task, without metal tools. What is established is this: the stones came from Wales. What remains uncertain is exactly how and exactly why a community would carry mountains across a country when perfectly good stone lay all around them. The discovery does not solve the mystery. It widens it, and it widened again. In recent years, excavations at a rocky outcrop in the Preseli Hills called Craig Rossi Felon uncovered what researchers interpreted as a Neolithic quarry, with stone recesses, working platforms, and tool marks. The team, led by Mike Parker Pearson, proposed that some bluestones may have stood as a monument in Wales first, then been dismantled and carried east to be raised again at Stonehenge. A monument moved, a stone circle relocated across a country. It is debated. Not every researcher accepts the full quarry and transport picture, but the geology placing the stones in Wales is widely accepted. The question of whether Stonehenge began its life as someone else's monument is still open. Step back from the stones now and look at the land around them. This is where the idea of Stonehenge standing alone collapses entirely. Leading northeast from the monument runs a long earthwork called the Avenue. Two parallel banks and ditches forming a processional route. For part of its length, it aligns with the rising sun at the midsummer solstice and the setting sun at midwinter. It does not run straight to the monument by accident. It was built to approach it, and the avenue leads, eventually, toward the River Avon. Follow that river upstream, and you reach Durrington Walls. And here, the story turns again. Durrington Walls is one of the largest henge enclosures in Britain. A vast circular earthwork less than 2 miles from Stonehenge. Inside and around it, the Stonehenge Riverside Project uncovered the remains of a Neolithic settlement, houses, hearths, and enormous quantities of animal bone and broken pottery. The dating was striking. Much of this activity falls around 2500 BCE, the same period the great Sarsens were being raised at Stonehenge itself. The bones told a story of feasting. Analysis suggested pigs and cattle were brought here from across Britain and slaughtered in midwinter. People gathered at Durrington in their hundreds, perhaps thousands, for short, intense periods. This led to a powerful idea argued by Parker Pearson and colleagues. Two linked sites: Durrington, built of timber, full of life, feasting, and the living; Stonehenge, built of stone, silent, and tied to the dead. A landscape of the living and a landscape of the ancestors, joined by the river and by avenues of approach. It is a theory, but it reframes everything. Stonehenge was not a building, it was one half of a conversation written across the land. And there is more inside that landscape than most people ever see. Beside Durrington stands Woodhenge, once a setting of concentric rings of timber posts, marked today by concrete pillars where the wood once stood. At its center, an early excavation recorded the burial of a child. Stretching across the plain runs the Stonehenge Cursus, an enormous elongated enclosure nearly 3 kilometers long, older than the stone monument itself, its purpose still unknown. Scattered everywhere are the round barrows, burial mounds raised over the dead, clustering around Stonehenge as if drawn to it across centuries. People wanted to be buried within sight of the stones, long after the stones were raised. By this point, the pattern is clear. Stonehenge was not standing alone. It was one visible piece of a landscape that had been used, altered, and remembered for thousands of years. Then, in 2020, the landscape produced something no one had predicted. A team using geophysical survey and targeted boring identified a ring of massive pits encircling Durrington Walls, each more than 10 meters across and 5 meters deep, spaced in a vast circle more than 2 kilometers in diameter. More than 20 were detected, with evidence suggesting many more once existed. If the interpretation holds, this is one of the largest prehistoric structures known in Britain, and it had gone unnoticed, hidden beneath the modern surface, beside one of the most studied monuments on Earth. The find was reported by researchers from several British universities working together. It is still being studied. Its exact purpose, boundary, sacred enclosure, marker of a forbidden ground, remains uncertain. The discovery does not close the story. It makes it larger. So why here? Why this place? The honest answer is that no single explanation is proven, but the credible theories can be laid out fairly. One holds that Stonehenge was a great ceremonial gathering place, a point where scattered communities across Neolithic Britain came together, and the labor of building was itself the purpose, a society uniting through a shared, monumental task. Another emphasizes the dead. The cremations, the burial mounds, the link to Durrington's living settlement, all suggesting a monument bound to ancestors, memory, and the boundary between the living and the gone. Another points to the sky. The solstice alignments are real and widely accepted. The monument frames the midsummer sunrise and the midwinter sunset with deliberate precision. Whether it functioned as a calendar, an observatory, or a stage for ritual timed to the sun is debated. And another sees a sacred route. Water, stone, and movement linked together. The river, the avenue, the journey from the place of the living to the place of the dead. These theories are not all in conflict. The landscape may have meant several things at once, and meant different things across the centuries it was in use. Return, finally, to the stones that started it all. The blue stones from Wales. Of everything at Stonehenge, they remain the hardest fact to absorb. A people moved mountains across a country and raised them in a place already sacred, already filled with their dead, already shaped by generations before them. They did it without writing to record why. They left the stones and took the reason with them. What is established is this: it happened. What remains uncertain is why it mattered so much that it was worth the cost. The question is still open, and every new survey of this plain, every buried pit, every quarry trace, every fresh date pulled from old bone, tends not to answer it, but to deepen it. Britain's prehistoric record is not a fixed story. It is a landscape still being read. Stonehenge may be the most famous part of it, but it was never the whole thing. Only the piece that still stands above the grass, while the rest waits under the chalk. If one of these discoveries changed how you see ancient Britain, leave it in the comments. Subscribe for more ancient sites that keep rewriting what researchers thought they knew.